We're going to briefly look at what we did in the last session. Anybody who was here, normally it's our culture that before we start a new session, we get to talk about the last session. If there are any questions, if there are any concerns, career-wise, where is this course taking me through, and every other question you think you need to ask, please feel free to ask. And also, I would also want to ask from the session for last week, what was your major, for you, what was your pinpoint, or what was your take home as much as possible? I don't know. So I'd like us to share. What did you learn? Because some of us are new to SAP, some of us have done it before. So what new knowledge did you think you took home, took back with? It could be a concept, it could be a knowledge. So I would like us to share. Please take note, the classes here are very interactive. Contribution is mandatory, right? There's no sleeping member or no inactive member. Everybody would have to be part of the class, right? So let's try as much as possible to make the class interactive. I always say that that I'm moderating doesn't mean that I have all the knowledge. Some of us are coming from different backgrounds, and when you share your insights, and all of us, we share our insights, we go home much more enriched than just one person just saying what he knows, right? If A says what he knows, B shares his own ideas, she shares, at the end of the day, we will definitely leave here more informed than just when the teacher is actually just saying stuff. So that's the essence of making sure that you are also part of the session. So we did a lecture for about 2 hours or so last weekend. Please, I want you to share your thoughts. How's the lecture? What did you go home with? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe let me just give a brief takeaway for me.
Okay.
We talked about, basically, after introducing SAP, you talked about the advantages of SAP. This is part of what I really want to hear, because I want to know how I'll benefit from SAP. So I was interested in knowing what the advantages are. And one of the things you said is it's user-friendly, which is good. That is what, because you can easily interface with it. I believe that is why most organizations big organizations are going for SAP. There was even a small organization I worked for in Calgary that had a smaller version of SAP. It had a smaller version of it, and the owner of that company, an Indian, he's an engineer, but he fell in love with this SAP. As a matter of fact, if not for the size of his company, he would have wanted a bigger thing, So, and it's because of that interface. It was just so easy for the staff. Before I joined, when he introduced it to the company to learn how to use SAP. The other thing is it's real time. In other words, you can just access this information from whichever accounting point of view. That is what an accountant wants. If you are a controller or the man in charge of your accounts, you want to access all the information, real time. And then the other advantage you talked about is that it's available in different kind of models. It's available in different models. That really helped me. Then I also, another area that caught my attention was the career in SAP. Kelechi, you and I have discussed this even privately. I was looking at what career I can make from SAP after going through the BA lectures. Considering my background, honestly, as an auditor, when I was working with the public accounting firm in Nigeria, We do a lot of reporting. You write what we call management report at the end of the audit. Some of them, there was an investigation I did was that the report was about 150 pages with appendices. And I know what it means as a team leader to write a report. Every other person, every other member of the team is now resting, and then you stay awake, burning candles all night to make sure that the report is not only there, it follows a specific format, and it's tied to all the financial information you have in your financial statement. So I wasn't really too excited about BA, I must confess. I just felt, look, I can't go through this hassle again of writing reports and doing all this kind of investigation. I just want to rest. So I was looking at going into SAP proper and see what roles I can play, in SAP. And so some of the things you listed, in SAP career, you talked about, the application developer, you talked about functional consultant, then you talked about this business analyst. Honestly, I didn't want to see that there. I didn't want to see that there. I just only SAP. And then you talked about SAP solutions architect and then support consultant. And then you talked about the SME.
Yes.
Now, I still, here's the problem. Here's my issue. I am looking at a situation, where I'll learn this SAP and work online. That is stay in the comfort of my house and do whatever I want to do without having to go anywhere. So I was looking at that's what I'm looking at. So I don't know where this one falls into all these career that you listed here. Because so that was just my concern.
Okay, no problem. I think I'll address it as we move on. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your concern. Let me hear from others, so I'll just address. Or let me just address it and probably pick up from where others. Now, the idea is that. So let me show you. Let me log in first. Just a second. Okay, so SAP is basically an application that businesses use basically to run their operations, and like you have in the different. So let me now explain with the SAP. Now, this is the user interface. This is the GUI, graphic user interface. When you log into any SAP anywhere in the world that has GUI, this is what you're going to see. Now, there are two sets of people that interact with this interface, or two. Let's say I'm talking at the functional side now. There are two major sets of people who would naturally interface with you with this interface. And of course, this is based on roles. The first, I think I would say three. Yeah, three is most likely, but because of this class, I restricted it to two. But let me just give you the rundown for three. The first set of people that interface with SAP are called end users. Now, the journey of SAP starts with an end user. So what does an end user do basically? I believe I'm recording this session, right? Yes. So an end user, let's say, for example, in finance, there are so many modules. We have learned that in the last class. There are so many modules, and we have consultants for each of these modules, different consultants doing different things. But in the accounting module, that's why I went to accounting. Even in accounting, you have a lot of modules. We have consultants for virtually every single, and users for every of these processes. These are different business processes in finance. If I go to financial accounting, there are different activities. If I go to one activity, I'm going to see transactions. These are transactions. If I open a transaction, I'm going to see the types of transactions. Now, this is where the journey starts. The journey starts from you being an end user. So let's say, for example, you're learning this training, and you go through the, of course, this training will take you through the end user super user and the consultant role, but this is what happens real life, right? An end user knows how to process transaction, each of these. Let's say, for example, an end user will basically have to do some activities, some transactions in this activity called GL. So end users are users who are focused on a particular activity, right? So you mostly find them sitting in companies. So they have their table, they have what they do regularly, just like in the bank, right? If you enter the bank, you have different tables and you have people doing specific things. Those people doing specific things are called in SAP end users. You restrict them. Their login access directs them to one or depending on what they want them to do, one or more specific activity. Right. So the essence of this course, number one, is to train you on how to be an end user. So if I want to do invoice, for example, I'll get a T code for invoice, run the invoice, post the invoice. So an end user they just post transactions and they are restricted to that particular transaction. If you go to a place like Shell or Total, for example, you have different offices with single users doing specific things. Right. So that's one career. One career is that you can get out of this training is that you can get employed in a company as an end user. So a company can say, we are looking for somebody for a GL supervisor who would, help us post GL transactions. That is an end user role. So the essence of this class is, or what you would take home by the time we were done, is that you would understand the end user transactions, and at the end of this session, you can apply for, you will see some job roles will say, after they have listed the roles, they will now say knowledge of SAP in this is necessary or is important. Such kind of roles you can fit in perfectly well, because the role is not about SAP. SAP is just an added advantage, which after going through this course, you would have. The second, I hope you're following me, guys, right?
Yes.
Okay. The second role are the group of people we call super users. So super users, basically, they are, like I said, an end user would be in one of these transactions. A super user would probably be in one module. So super users are module. Please write. I don't know, but if you're coming for this kind of training, you should have a note. There's no how you go through this training and not have notes. Sorry, guys, just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Good. So there is no way you go through these sessions without having a note to just jot some of the points. The second activity you have is that of a super user. Now, a super user is module specific. So you will find super users also in companies or also working remotely. What do? They support the end users. That's how, I think in our last meeting, we had somebody who joined us from India who was an end user, but transitioned to a super user. So one of the roles you will have, and I also say that in the career path, you might get a job to support end users. So you are not a consultant. You might have gone through the consultant per se, but you're not doing consultant work. What you're doing is support role. So the idea is that in every project we have support consultants. What they do is once we go live, they're on ground to support the end users to run through their specific transactions. So end users are specific in transactions, super users are specific in modules. So a super user can have one module. So you can have super user in ARO, which account receivable, super user in AP, super user in banking, fixed assets. Also, if you join some companies like IBM, for example, IBMs, they have a very large large pool of staff. And even though you are a consultant in IBM, they will restrict you to a specific module. Like, they are very structured, so they don't want somebody to come and do everything. They will restrict you to it. So when you are interviewing with people like IBM, they will ask you, which specific module are you very good in? So when you're going through these sessions now, by the time you're ending this session, you will now know the module you think you are very good in. And when you are applying for roles, although you're applying as a consultant, but you might end up doing support. And the guy that joined us from India said that he's supporting the users, but of course he complained about how the errors and the issues are overwhelming. It's a very serious job, because once an end user has an issue with processing any transaction, you are the first line of support or the second line of support. In an organization, when we have super users, they are the first line of support. But in consulting, you are the second level of support. So if you're in-house, you're the first line of support. If you're in consulting firm, you're the second level. So just to answer you, you can get a remote job, and your job will be to support users. I've gotten that a lot. In fact, some of the projects, once you go live, the next thing is they convert you to start doing support. So you can do that from anywhere you are. Right. So and support is sometimes module specific. Sometimes they might require you to have knowledge in several areas, but it's normally module specific. Now, the third career path is the career path for consultants. What do consultants do? Consultants will focus on a particular business activity. For example, a consultant will know everything in financial accounting. So if I open financial accounting, you see these core modules 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's expect and 6. It's expected that the consultant knows virtually all the transactions here. So a consultant is both a super user, an end user, and also a consultant. So a consultant must have and would definitely understand end user role. He will understand super user role and also understand configuration. So as a consultant, you should be able to support the super user. So once there is an error, it gets to the super user. The super user cannot resolve it. It comes to you as a consultant. If you cannot resolve it, then you escalate it up to the solution architect or the project manager. So that's the hierarchy. Right? So as a consultant, you know the module. Also, you now understand, because you have done configuration, you will have an idea of why this, because any error you see is sometimes, most of the time, is tied to how the system was configured. Some other errors are technical, but some other errors, most of the errors users face most times are functional. So you have to, because you know configuration and you know end user role, then you can basically that's what makes you a consultant. Yeah, so in terms of career path, in terms of this training is to teach you to be a consultant. Then, of course, after this session, you will take it off from there by when you have your own sandbox. That's why I keep insisting that you cannot learn SAP without having your own sandbox, because after a month, this subscription will end. And when it ends, if you don't renew on time, you might start this whole process again by, because they might have deleted the company you created. Then you have to now start afresh. And also the second reason why you should have your own sandbox is because even when you get a job, right, you need to test, you need to get hands-on your own. So let's say, for example, next week they say they will do GL, right? If you don't have access, and most times, even if they give you their own sandbox, they restrict you to the things you can do on their system. So if you have your own personal sandbox, you go back home, sit with it, do it end to end, rehearse, practice, make sure you're fine before that day, so that when you're interacting with your bosses, you must have done these things yourself, right? And for us who have been in industry for a while, I always, anywhere I go with my own sandbox. because, and of course, the sandbox I use is ECC. Why I like the ECC sandbox is the ECC sandbox has most of the core configuration. In fact, it was one of SAP's one of the transformational product that SAP has. So I like that setting there because it's very rigid. It's not as flexible and open as S4. So if you can go through the sandbox of ECC and run it through, then you are good to go. And the transactions are the same, just slight differences here and there. Right. So that's why to be a consultant, you need to be prepared. You need to have these tools. You need to have your own sandbox. You need to have materials that you have to constantly, go through, constantly practice. I remember when I started, I had to, after learning, I think I practiced to about 10, 15 companies, end-to-end configuration, to the extent that if I see configurations now, I just flow with it, right? So so I could only do that because I had my own sandbox and I was not bothered about subscription, right? Because once you pay for subscription, of course, after a month or so it ends, you have to renew and keep renewing and keep renewing. For me, it's not cost effective. So I spent that money, got my own. That is not, I don't need internet, it's just on my system and I went through it. That's the secret of being very, very grounded in this field. That's one secret I can tell you. So that's the 3 different roles you can get, career paths you can get in this space.
So as a follow-up question, sorry, gentlemen, fellow
no,
policy
go on,
concern,
go on. It's important.
I'm taking your time.
It's important.
Yeah. So as a follow-up, now the SAP certification, is it also structured like this? Like you can do a certification for just a super consultant. I mean,
no, certification starts with consultant. There's no certification for super user or end user.
Okay.
They are just training certificates you will get. For example, if you go through a training, they will say, okay, this is true. But the main certification that will give you access to SAP's server and training, and of course, SAP's knowledge area, you will have access to doing a lot of, in fact, SAP has their own training platform, platforms where on a constant basis, they are reminding you as a consultant to upskill, and it's open, it's free. But sometimes you might not have access to that if you don't have your own S number, and you get an S number when you do a certification with SAP. So I also advise you guys, yes, that's another point. Thank you. Another thing you need to get is once you are done with this course, get your sandbox. As much as possible, do the certification. It will give you a very, very good footing, in the future. So, but I will also put a one in here that certification is no guarantee that you would get a job. When you meet interviewers, they don't even look at your certification. They will ask you practical questions. So you have a lot of people who don't have certifications, but who are in the job. It's just that as you grow in the career, and there are certain jobs too and certain countries. For example, if you're going to Europe, Germany, they like certifications. You have to do these things. But somewhere around the US and Switzerland countries, they are but there are some places you might not be able to access if you don't have it. So if you have the funds, immediately after this session, if you have the funds, plan for it. For you to plan for certification exam, you have to have practice, because some of the questions will be what we are doing. It's funny how they set questions for softwares, because they will just be asking you bits based on the knowledge that you have gathered. And of course, we are here to support you. We have dumps, we have past questions that are very close to the thing that if you follow it, if you practice and you study, you have a very high chance of coming out successful in your certification exam. And when you pay for a certification, I think you have three attempts to get at it, and I'm hoping that if you go through this session, you most likely get it once, because I think I have 5 of them, and I virtually know how SAP certifications work, and I've used all those. I mean, I've tried it, I've tested it, and I've gone through those processes. So it's also a very important point. Get your sandbox, practice, save up, and plan to get your certification. But you don't have to wait to get certification. Immediately you finish and you've practiced and you feel your confidence has come up. We'll also have past questions that will prepare you for interviews as much as possible. So we'll give you everything you need. It's just that you have to take ownership and make the necessary investments you have to make. But working remotely, I do remote roles. I mean, it's just this one, my last job that required me to start commuting. I work remotely, I support users, I do consultant work remotely. So wherever you are, it's not a challenge. I just have the skill and know how to find your way around it. Okay, thank you for that. Anthony, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. And please, my question is just brief.
Okay.
Is it time we have an idea about what this certification will cost, or should that be discussed later? Thank you.
I don't know. Okay, so I don't know for now, but I would advise, let me check. I think I noted it somewhere. The problem we would have is the exchange rate issues that is flying up and down. But what I would advise is budget from $600 to $800. Just have that at the back of your mind. Just budget for that. And $600 to $800, you should be able to get one of the certifications and prepare for it. I just gave that range,
No
but yeah, subsequently we can always confirm that.
Hello, Kelechi.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Yes.
Is that for how do I say it? Is that for module specific exam, or like the one you hinted me, if you want to do as many as possible? I don't know if what I'm saying
It's
makes sense.
module specific. It's module
Which
specific.
one was the one that you gave? Was it what did they call it? Okay,
See
the other
what we'll
one
do.
is the one that will allow you. Okay.
Yeah, see what we'll do. Let's just take this out of here. But the list you can get is what I've said, and SAP has different kinds of certifications. So what we'll do is that what I gave you was the standard certifications that you will need to go through as a consultant. Right. So there are still other basic certifications, but what we'll do is that let's take it out of here because we have a lot to do. Once we're done with the class, you can write me, I'll give you those clarifications. Right? Are you there, Steve?
Sure. Yeah, I'm here.
Yep. Okay, so welcome everyone. We're just going to do, we're going to run through this. Any other questions, please? I think we have accommodated that. Let's move on. So last week we looked at a lot of concepts. Please, as much as possible, take your notes. If you want to write certification exam, you have started all these questions you would see. What is the different servers, T codes, tables, and all. You will see all these things. So please take notes as much as possible. So we're going to start here. We successfully logged into the system. Yeah, and I'm just going to take you around the system, show you one or two things you can do so that once you log in, you can play this session again, go through the steps. Hopefully you get the same result as much as possible. And after this class, please, those who have not installed, please, you're going to wait back. I'm going to help you set it up. Then hopefully by today, tomorrow, you're going to get your user accesses as much as possible. Okay, so immediately you log in. For example, to log in, you provide a username and a password, which I'm going to send to you. I've also explained that this is what the icon looks like when you finish the installation. So you just double click on the icon and you double click on this guy. If you double click on the icon, it's going to open this guy. You double click on it, it's going to give you where you are going to provide your username and password. You provide your username and password, and the system takes you into the GUI. This is what we call the GUI. GUI is graphic user interface. Now, I'm just going to play around, show you one or two things that will help you navigate through the system. So I'm just going to be looking at that. The first thing we are going to look at is change background colors, right? And you have this very interesting icon here, but it depends on the version of you're using. So if I, for example, I go to more, go to GUI settings and action. From here now, you have started using SAP. So I want to say congratulations for all those who are here, because by the time you finish the class, you have achieved one thing, right? You have been able to know how to access SAP and move around. So you have the user GUI settings and actions, then you go to options. You go to options, it's going to take you through the different settings, right? You have theme setting, where it talks about the type of theme you're using. Theme is the beauty, the appearance. So we're using Quarters theme. That's why we have, this kind of appearance. You can use any theme, Blue, Brazil, SAP signature theme, and the rest of them. Then we have font setting. This is by default, 72 monospace. We have branding. If you want to brand your GUI, but some of these things are just there. Interaction and design. If you go to sound setting, for example, if you want the system to always make an audio signal when you process certain transactions, you can also indicate that with your audio signal. So if you go here, for example, just in case you get this manual, you can see the SAP signature default. Then you can see here, activate audio signal. So, after this session, I think I'm going to send this slide to all of you. Then if you want to activate, you just click on the activate box. Then the next thing we have is very, very important. The next info. So we have a lot of settings here, security, local, but please let me say something, right? Please do not in SAP, because this is like a dev system, and I think it's open to a lot of people. Please don't, if you have any, it's sensitive, because there are certain fields you can go and activate and the whole system will be a mess up. So please don't go to areas you don't know. And if you have questions, kindly ask. Right, so the next thing we're going to look at is the menu bar, because we have lots of tabs just at the menu bar. If you go to menu, you're going to see user menu, SAP menu. If you click on, this is where we are now, is more like, this is the user menu. And if you open it, you're going to see, you can add other menus here. So it's user specific. It's based on what you want. So we are going to teach you how to add favorites and all that. If you want to come back to SAP menu, you can come here and click on SAP menu to take you back to where we were. Remember, the first place is user menu. You can use these icons too. This is user menu. This is SAP menu. So in case you log in and you see yourself on this screen, just come to the next icon here and click on SAP menu, and you're going to be here. So you have workspace. Workspace is like, now SAP has its own internal mailing system. So just like you have Gmail, Yahoo, and all that, SAP has its own mailing system within the company, within the organization. So organizations can send mails within SAP, not necessarily outside SAP. So you can see things like your inbox, your outbox, private LED folders. So SAP has its own internal mailing system. That's to show you basically how robust you can do calendar, distribution list, and all that. So when you join projects, for example, they can be sending you mail. So you need to go to SAP Workplace. That's where you would see the internal mailing system of SAP. You'll find that in SAP Workplace. So if you go to menu here, you're going to see it here. Or you can use Control F12. So all these are shortcuts that you can use to do what you need to do. You can also have the icon here, SAP Business Workplace. If you go to edit, we will have more icons here, rows, you might not have access to some of these things. If you go to edit, for example, we have execute a new window, we have execute. If you open a new window, it will just basically execute that transaction in another window. Favorite, for example, is also a very important part. Now, as an end user or a super user, a consultant, there might be specific transactions that you do regularly. So let's say, for example, you are, as a super user or a consultant, you normally frequent GL, right? You normally frequent GLs. And inside GLs, you do a lot of all these transactions. But you see the process I went through to get to these transactions. You can put these transactions in your favorites, such that if it's 5 of them you normally do, just go to your favorites and pick the transactions you want to work on. It's as simple as that. So your favorites would help you basically manage different transactions that you regularly use. So if I go to favorites and I say add, I can create my own favorite system. Sorry, just select this, go to favorites, add. So you can see that. So what you do, you select the transaction you want, go to favorites, and you click add. The system is going to automatically add that transaction to your favorite list. If I right click on favorites, I can delete, insert transactions. I can do a lot of things here. So if I, for example, shrink this page, in your GUI, you normally have 2 folders, favorites and SAP menu. So in your favorites, you can add transactions that you regularly work with in your favorites. Right? What did I do? Just go to the menu, or you can even add with transaction code, which I'm going to teach you in a few minutes. So go to what you want, select it, and go to edit, go to favorite and add. Automatically, it's going to add that transaction in your favorite. So if I add, for example, I now have, and if you want to remove, right click and you can delete. Then let me add something different, GL posting. So I'll click on it, go to favorite and add. So I have these 2 transactions. So if I don't want to go through all these whole rigors of menu parts, go through here, it can take a lot of time. I can just close this and go to my favorites. And these are the transactions I always work with. So can easily just have access to them. Now, of course, you can you can create your own folder. There's a favorite folder here. You can add your own folder, which you will call, let me say, Kelly's folder. Then I can click OK. So I have my own folder. There's favorite. I can just click and drag. I can drag this transaction into my own folder. So you can see now that in favorites, inside favorites, I have Kelly's folder. In favorites, I only have 1 transaction. In Kelly's folder, I have another transaction. So you can come to favorites and insert folder so that you can create one that fits you. If you don't want to use the favorites, you can actually create your own folder and work with what you want to do with that transaction. Then, of course, you can insert transaction into any of these folders, just like we added this one. So it's either you add or you insert. But to insert, you need a T code, and I need to also teach you what a T code is. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is what we call transaction codes. Now, there are basically two major ways a functional consultant or a super user can access transaction in SAP. The first is you go through the menu part, just as I went through the menu part. We call these menu parts, right? So you start using the SAP terms. So you go to accounting, financial accounting, general, let's say accounts receivable. These are transactions. Then you see invoice and all that. You see the step I took to access invoice. I want to look for invoice. I have to go through this step to see invoice. Another way you can access transaction is SAP is what we call through transaction codes. So if you don't want to go through this long path, there's a code for each of these transactions. We can't see them now because they are not activated. To activate a code, a transaction code, you go to extra and you go to settings. When you go to settings, you're going to see what we call technical name. So transaction code, another name for transaction code is what we call the technical names, the transaction technical name, right? So I'll tick on the box and tell the system that let the system display the technical name for invoice, because what I'm saying here is English. The technical name is more of code. So I'll tell the system display technical name. I'll say okay. So when I say, okay, it's going to close, you can see now that technical name has come to this transaction, but let me go to my invoice again. So one of the things you're going to be learning as an SAP user consultant is the transaction codes. There are many of them, so you're not expected to cram them, but the ones you use regularly, you're going to be noting them down. So you can see that the transaction code for invoice is FB70. So what do I do? If I want to access invoice, I don't need to come through this part. If I just come to the transaction page, right, or the command bar and put FB70 and click enter, the system is going to open an invoice for me. This is an invoice. So I did not go through the menu part. It had gone through the menu part and clicked on invoice to open invoice. But I don't need to go through the menu part since I know the transaction code. So that's one thing you should also learn today, is that in SAP, most times we use transaction code to execute transactions, because sometimes going through the menu part as a user, can be very time consuming. So you will just have a book where you note down transaction codes that you use most of the time, or you can add them to your favorites. So you can see now that F-02 is a transaction code for general ledger. So as a consultant or as a user in SAP, you would from time to time, or most often, you're going to be using what we call transaction code to execute transactions. Please, Mr. Chooks, we need to go for breaks, right? Once is 6:20, please let me know, so we can just about 20 minutes from now, 25 minutes from now, let me know so
okay.
we can go for break. Yes.
You can be sure I'll do that.
Yes, I'm sure. That's why I called you. Okay, so we have F-02, which will mean, so anytime I put F-02, I just mean it's general ledger. So we have specific codes for specific transactions in SAP. Please take note of that. So I went to extra technical, I went to extra settings to bring out this. So if you log into your system and you don't see these codes, you're only seeing the description, please go to setting, go to extra setting and tick on this box, display technical names. The codes will come out. Right. Okay, so I think that's that. The next thing we're going to look at is, if you go to system, we have a lot of information there, but because we're starting as new users, we'll just give you the basics. The first one is what we call the GUI window. This interface you're seeing is a GUI, it's one window. In SAP, we can have up to 5 to 7 windows open. So let me click. So if you check here, you will see it will go to 3. We have 3 now. If I go to system and click on new GUI again, I'll give you some time. We have 4, right? So you can be working on 4 different screens at the same time. So in this screen, for example, I can be doing F-02. I'll click on it, which is a T code. I'll click on it. In this screen, I can be doing FB70, which is for invoice. I click on it. Okay, sorry. Invoice page is always carries a lot of transactions. Yeah, so this page, so you can see that you can be working on multiple pages at the same time for up to 5. You can be working on all these pages at the same time. So how you do that is you go to system and you will see new GUI. But please take note, because like I said, these sessions you have to be writing. There'll be a lot of points so that you don't have to go through the video again to remember some of these things. Now, the transaction code to open a new window. So let's say, for example, I'm working on this window, right? I'm working on this window. I've put dates. I've selected the dates. I've put some information here and information here. So I'm working on this window. Let me close this guy. Close this guy. I'm working on this window and I don't want to work on this window again. I want to close this window. Remember, this window is F-02, is GL posting. I want to close this window and open a new window. So what I do is I come to the command bar, put /n. So this /n means open a new window. If I do only /n, it will take me to the GUI. For example, if I do /n, you see it will close this page and take me to the GUI. It will open another page. So, however, if I go back to that page and I do /n, then I will put the new window I want it to open. So I want it to close this window and open a new window. So I'll put /n and say FB70, which is the new window I want it to open, and I click on enter. It will close this GL window and open the invoice window. So these are some of the codes that you would, as a user, right, as a super user, you also, because you will be training the users. Now I'm seeing all of you like users. When we go to the consultants, I see you as consultants. I'm seeing you as users now and super users because we're in the front page. Now I want to open, now the next thing, remember I say /n, close, /n and a T code, close and open another window. Now I want to leave this window and open a new window. I don't want to close it, but I want to open another window. I'll use /o, and I will add the window I want it to open, F-02, which is for GL. This is invoice. I want it to leave this window and open a new window for GL. I'll click enter. You see, I have GL. You can notice now I have 2 windows. This is the invoice, this is GL. It did not close the invoice. Rather, it left the invoice and opened a new window. So if you have not /o is to leave the existing window and open a new one. /n is to close the window and open a new one. So in /n, you only have 1 window. /o, you create a new window and leave the old one. So /n and /o are very two important T codes that you will need to know or have as a user. /n, you will use it every time. /n and /o. Rather, if you don't remember the third way to open a new window, please go to system here and you will see new GUI or close GUI. Right? New GUI. If you don't remember /n or /o, just come to system. You will see new GUI. If you click on it, it will open a new window. So these are the different ways you can navigate the system. You know, testing, finding your way around, /n/o, system, new GUI, and all that. So this, but this is very important because as a user, you will have to be working on different screens at the same time sometimes. Then, of course, you have different options here, which I'm going to exit and order. Based on the window you open, you will see different menus, which I'll be explaining as we process transactions. So,
Sorry. Can I ask a
yes,
question?
yes, please.
So just like to recap to be sure that I'm getting the right thing. /n on the same window, it closes what you are doing and opens another one on the same window, right? Then
Yes,
/o now opens like an extra.
exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
Opens extra. Okay, so that is that about navigating, right? Let me see if there's any other thing we need to touch on briefly. I think yes. Before we go into configuration, yeah, exactly. Now, one of the T codes that you will know and you will use for consultants, especially because end users and super users do not go to the back. They don't go to the back end of the system. Nobody will give you access in a live project. And like I also said, depending on the role you get, if you don't get a role as a consultant, you're not going to be doing anything consulting. You're not going to be doing any configuration. You'll most likely be either supporting end users or you'll be a super user. But if you get, even though you get a role as a consultant, you might also not have access to the back because it's basically restricted to those who design the system in the first place, except you have a lot of expertise, right? So, but the essence of this class is also to expose you to what the back looks like. And one of the very important T codes of going to the back is what we call SPRO, implementation guide. But let me take you through the menu part. So if you want to go, I like showing you both menu parts and T code. So if you forget a T code, you are not under any kind of pressure. You also need to know the menu parts. But in trainings you have, most of the trainings you have out there, they just give you T codes and run you through. What I try to do is to expose you enough so that if you don't know T code, don't be frightened or don't feel you don't know SAP, right? You can always use the menu part. So if I go to tools, for example, and I go to customize, so tools is a menu part just at the bottom here. I go to tools, I go to customizing, I go to IMG, IMG means implementation guide. Then I go to, you see the T code SPRO. SPRO is one of the most popular T codes in SAP. So is either I double click on it here. So I'm going to be using menu part and T codes interchangeably as I go on. So SPRO is the T code. Please note it down. It's the T code for executing projects for configuration, for configuring the system or for system configuration. So I'll double click on it and it takes me to what we call the interface to execute project. Then you click on this tab called SAP reference IMG. Then it ushers you to the back where you will now cook the food that users will eat. So it's at this back that we cook the food that users will eat. And it's at this back. Remember those who did BA, business analysis, I told you guys something, right? In business analysis, at this point, does anybody remember the activate methodology, the 6 steps? Does anybody remember, especially Stephen? Do you remember the steps we take to run projects in SAP? So you see now that, like I said, consultants, you cannot go in for interview without being a BA. Without appreciating what you learned in BA, you are going to find it difficult passing interviews. So Mr. Chooks, BA is a major part of being a consultant or being a user because you cannot be a consultant without knowing the Activate methodology, which you learned as a BA. Remember, I told you guys that a BA starts the project, and at the phase of course, it starts with the discovery phase. As a consultant, you should know these things. So it's not a job for BA. As a consultant, you should know BA work. It's a requirement. Is expected. Because you are configuring system does not mean you will not know the business part of it. That is a major. I've told you guys over and over again, and one of the reasons why I brought in the BA course is the experience I had when I lost a major job because I did not know project work. I'm warning you, I won't say warning, but I'm advising you, go back to your BA and know that thing very well. Because whether you're working from home and supporting people or you are on the field, you have to, as a consultant, know BA. You need to know those activities. They are very, very, very important. It might just be that the role that you want to get in IBM is not, you won't be doing a lot of configuration. You'll be doing more of project support. Support, the word support does not mean it's only supporting users. You will do project support. You will help them do feed gap analysis. You will help them do functional specification. These are jobs of consultants. You will help them do mapping, map requirement. You help them do, tests, functional test, integration test. Don't think that what you learned in BA, you go. Please, guys, let me sound it again. What you learned in business analysis is 40 to 50% of what you meet in your interviews. So please, I'm begging you, go back and learn that thing. Configuration is just a part. What makes you a complete user or a complete consultant, and what will give you opportunities, except you're not looking for a job, what will give you opportunities, expand your opportunities, is when you have both BA and configuration, so that anyone that comes, or if, and it depends on who is interviewing you. If the person interviewing you is a management staff or a project manager, you will not, they won't be asking you questions about configuration, my brothers and sisters. They'll be asking you BA questions. If the person interviewing you is high level, what they won't ask you what is T code for opening new window. They will ask you, we are doing a rollout project. You said you have done rollout project. Sure, tell us the activities, explain to us what you did in a rollout. Those are the kind of questions you'll be having. I'm begging you guys again, please, if you want to have a balanced career in SAP, do not take that what you learned for 2 months as for granted. I'm begging you again, go back. I cannot believe that I'll ask somebody at this point, what is the Activate methodology? And I say, no, hey, you're going to get the shocker of your life when you go for interviews. So this is like the first or second question. Please, I'm saying it again. Don't say that, you will see these things when you get there. Nobody will take job and give you at a platter of gold. If you like, have all the experiences. When you come to SAP, you will learn the ropes and you will go through the process. I always say it, you will go through the process. What you learned is important to where you're going or whatever you want to do. Please, the Activate methodology is SAP's very important, I will say it again, it's a very important knowledge area for anybody coming in SAP, right? It's a very, very important knowledge area. You need to know, before you configure system, you need to know what happened. How did you even get the blueprint that you're configuring, consultant or super user? You need to know these things. So I've said it. So you don't say tomorrow, I thought. Don't take what you learned. I'm saying it again. I'm saying it passionately because I lost a job because of that side. Because who was interviewing me was a partner in EY. Thank God, Mr. Chooks, you are in the accounting world. A partner in EY will not be asking you configuration questions, so they'll be asking you more of management-related questions. So it depends on who is interviewing you. I'm trying to stress this. I'm stressing it. If you want to succeed in this path, you need to understand the project side and this side. For those who have done the BA, please go back. SAP is a life of continual. You don't learn anything in SAP and keep it. You have to continue. I have, if you come to my library, I have books, like notes. I don't go through a course without having my own notes, because when I want to prepare for interview, I won't go back to the videos. There is no time for that. So I will write verbatim what the speaker, if I show you notes I have in SAP, no physical notes with handwriting, I will write verbatim what the speaker is saying on a book, because that's how I remember. That's how I can go back. If you just leave it in the video format in your system and you have manual, it will not help you. If you have not been able to internalize, read it, internalize, write it down, write the major points down. For example, one thing that should have been in your notes is the activate methodology, the 6 steps we use to deploy projects in SAP. Discovery, prepare.
Of course, I know it's both.
No, I'm saying
Realize phase and the rest. Yeah.
no, not on
Realize
the
on.
Stephen, no
Yeah.
problem. I'm somebody who emphasizes things once, and when I emphasize it once, it goes. But I want you to take what you learned seriously. I'm saying this generally. Even this course we're learning now, I'm in the field. I'm not a trainer that carry T code and come and start teaching. No, I'm a practicing consultant. So when I tell you if I show you, professionalism will not allow me to show you my screen. If I show you my screen, the project that I joined, you will see all the things I taught you. You will see them. It's not. I'm not teaching you. It is what I'm a consultant too. But it is what you will do some of these things. You will do some BA work. No matter how you say, oh, I want to do support. No. They can tell you, okay, we're employing you as support, but we want you to do functional specification. Will you tell them, no, you didn't employ me, I didn't sign up for this. I want to do, no, you don't do that. So please don't restrict yourself to a certain thing, right? There's one thing we talked about in BA. BA is you learn, you unlearn, and if you have difficulty on learning and relearning, you are retiring. So this field is very dynamic. IT is an environment that changes by the day. So you have to be ready to unlearn, unpack what you have learned, and accept new ones and follow that process. If not, you would think that you wasted your money. No. I'm saying it again. Please, guys, in this space, you have to, as much as possible, follow through with the process. Right. It's just for emphasis sake. But I won't tell you again. But the most important thing is that as we are doing this process, we're going to be referring to BA, because at the point of configuring, remember, the BA and the functional consultant would have done functional fit to gap. They would have designed, the functional consultant would have done the functional specification. From there, they will design the blueprint. It is a blueprint that will take you to this back. And the consultant will use the blueprints to do configuration. These are some of the very important knowledge we shared when we learned that course previously. What I'm doing now in my current project is FSD. I'm preparing for fit to standard workshop. After that, I will use BPMN to do business process design. After that, I will do FSD. After that, we'll come up with a blueprint and we start configuring. That is exactly what we do in a project. I'm a consultant. I'm not a BA. So that you are learning does not mean it's configuring system. No, in the real world, you will do BA work, whether you like it or not. It's the way it is. You would at some point come into the BA space. The BA is not about documentation, no. It's about understanding the business process. Just as you go for audit, before you audit, you have to get background information about the company. You have to document certain facts. You have to gather requirements. That is the crux of what you do in the BA space. You might not be the one documenting. You might be because of your level, you might be the one supervising. You might be the one managing. You might be so. It's dynamic in its nature. And then one of our students, she's currently on FSD. She's a consultant. She went through this course. She's in Germany. She called me to last week that they put her as the lead of a project. Yeah. Because one thing I know about working in these countries is that when they see your experience and they see your skill, they give you bigger roles that they feel you can handle. They will not say, because you say you want to do support does not mean. No, they will give you. They've seen your CV now. They've seen what you have accomplished. So don't expect some cheap roles. No, they're going to give you roles that fit your profile.
That's true.
So yes, you think they will just say, because see, they will give you roles that fit your. They saw her profile. She went through this class. First of all, they picked her as a support person. But when they went live on a project, she now supported them, did they organized for the training, did hand holding. The project has gone live. Immediately they now told her to lead. She's now leading project. Lead. She now ran to me. All those things I was teaching her in BA is now, but the thing is that now she doesn't know where to start from because she felt she did not need BA. But guess what? She's not paying me again to go through the BA part of the work, and I will charge you when you come back.
No, you won't charge us. You won't charge us. I intend to come back. I intend to come back, please.
No, but you see, now she's back, right? She's leading the project because one thing about foreign jobs, they will look at your profile. You have all the years of experience. You have done. The way they see us is different from the way Nigerian recruiters and Nigerian company will see you with 20 years experience and give you one cheap job to do. No, then they will look at your profile and give you what they think fits your profile. You have to man up. And manning up.
Yeah, sorry, Kelechi, let me just add to this. I had this experience myself the first time I came to Canada. In 2008. I just came in, and my the first job interview I had was they said we should just put our feet in the door, just take any job so that you get the Canadian work experience. So I saw an advert for accounts receivable officer, and I put in for it. By the time I went for the interview, they saw my resume and they made me the head of accounts in that company. So that was true.
It's not. You're not going for a comfortable space. Nobody will put you in that corner. No. So this was somebody that learned SAP last year. Now what's she doing? She's to lead, and what does it mean to lead? You gotta do BA work. Last week she went for requirement gathering. This was Sunday. We're going to have a meeting. I have that one-on-one session with her. She will do the requirement analysis. She's not preparing for fit to standard workshop. She will lead the workshop, and it's not being so. So guys, just have that at the back of your mind that the field you're coming into is a very dynamic space. It's not traditional like accounting, where once you're in audit, you're on audit. Once you're doing financial reporting, once you're in banking and you get one role. No. In this space, you have to be dynamic. You do a lot of things still within that your environment. So that's why I'm trying to stress this, that you need it. You cannot. I mean, you won't escape it. So the earlier you hold what you have learned like gold and keep it in the front of your mind, because I'm hoping that once we are done with this session, some of us will go into the market and try to get some roles. And you will hear these things. It's not. I've shown you job description. If you see job description, you will see some BA roles inside. You will see them there. It's not what you want. It's what the system is. So guys, let's have that at the back of our mind. This is just to ginger us up to make sure that we don't forget. Now, at the point of at this point, we have a blueprint, and one thing you will see at the blueprint is what we call the let me just rush to this, is what we call this enterprise structure. And it's very, very important. Understanding the enterprise structure is key to whatever you're configuring, because configuration without understanding enterprise structure is tantamount to just being in, just being lying. Your mind is just wandering everywhere. Right. So let's first of all talk about the role called FICU, which is where most of us will fit in. FICU is simply a module. I told you we have a lot of modules in SAP. We have MM, we have SD, we have a lot of modules, but the focus for this class is on finance.
Hello, sorry, I think it's break time. You said you should remind the 166.
Oh, yes. So we are going to go for a 10 minutes break, but by exactly 6:35, we should all be back here. I'm not going to tell you, are you here? Are you here? No. Once it's that time, we'll start. So as much as possible, go just stretch your legs, come back, because we have a journey that we need to move on to. So thank you very much, guys. See you in 10 minutes.
Okay.